Gojo, follow me down this path on college football. You and I have discussed this before, okay? The regular season, like college football has it down perfectly, where the regular season feels like a playoff, right? And 4 teams make it to the postseason. So you have a game this weekend like Oregon and Washington. You have a game coming up this weekend, Penn State and Ohio State. Those are de facto playoff games, okay? And you lose the juice when it becomes a 12-team playoff. Right now it's 4. Next year it goes to 12. Because that Washington-Oregon game, as exciting as it was, Gojo, it wouldn't matter as much because both teams are going to get in next year. And so you lose some of the juice with some of these great regular season games, Ohio State, Michigan. That game's going to lose some juice once you get to a 12-game playoff because they're both going to get in, regardless of who wins the game, loses the game. And so I kind of don't like where college football is headed, and where we're headed is to a 12-team playoff because I think they have the regular season down perfectly.
Honestly, I think we overblow all this stuff in the packaging of the sport with the playoff teams. Like, you look at this weekend, Stugotz, the biggest difference would have been, and look, I'm not going to just use this selfishly to continue to spread Notre Dame propaganda for me and Jess, but that game in South Bend mattered a lot this weekend. Had no playoff implications for Notre Dame fans because they were already out of it.
Right.
That mattered a lot. You crash landed into that game, and there are fireworks going off after. Everybody celebrating like rock stars because that game still mattered, and because it was a quality performance by their team. Yeah, it knocked USC potentially out of playoff contention, but even them with one loss, they're still technically in it right now. But that didn't matter. The Washington-Oregon game, I was on the call for that game on radio, and I promise none of the reason anybody had a good time in that stadium or watching was because of the playoff. It's because you knew you had 2 quality teams who went out there and lived up to the billing. So,
Mike, my question about the Washington-Oregon game is, I mean, the question that I think a lot of Oregon fans are probably asking this morning, which is Dan Lanning too aggressive on 4th down? Like, it cost them last year. It maybe cost them this game. He said after the game he kind of regretted not kicking a field goal before halftime, and that was like the one that he kind of wished he had back. But where do you stand on all of this? And is this just basically following in the footsteps of the existential crisis happening in the NFL with analytics right now too?
Yeah, it's the perfect opportunity, I think, to shift the conversation around that. We spend way too much time focusing on should we go for it or not, and not like, let's talk about the play calls in those spots. Designed obvious rollouts that Washington was clearly ready for both times. I have no problem with a coach being hyper aggressive. I appreciate Dan being willing to criticize himself, but I had a lot less issue with him being aggressive in those spots because he's consistent with it versus what they actually decided to do with the resources they had in those spots, trying to have something better drawn up for that moment. Because if you know you're going to push the bounds, especially once you go for it at the end of the first half like that, you know you're in that mode. The team, all I care about as a player is knowing, all right, I know what to expect from my coach here. I know what we're going to do when we get into these situations, so I'm not surprised by it. And as long as everybody's on the same page like that, the go decision to me is a lot less important than what you do once you're there.
Mike, I think those were 2 of the 4 best teams I've seen this year. I don't think both are going to get into the playoff, but I think both should get into the playoff. What do you think?
I think they're both playoff caliber teams, and the best part is because of the way most college football conferences are structured now, we got a good chance to have that be the Pac-12 championship game again.
Well, yep.
Like, there's a good chance we get to see them play, and we know in the past, if you're Oregon and you believed, hey, we looked like the better team for the majority of that game and gave up the goods at the end, if you erase that loss, human committee usually could say, well, you lost in the regular season, but you erased that loss in the postseason in the conference championship game. And if that was your only loss, then, hey, we can probably consider you one of the best 4 teams. And based on how things shake out, that would give you a pretty good opportunity. But yeah, Oregon shouldn't have dropped very much off that. They looked incredible in that game. Both teams are exactly who we thought they were in that game. And it's sad we've, beaten this drum plenty, but the fact that this is happening in the Pac-12's final year of existence, where you have these teams performing this well and drawing this much attention. But yeah, I think not only those are 2 of the best teams in college football, Stugotz, but they're probably the only 2 teams in the Pac-12 with a real shot of making it out. We thought going into this season, USC might be a live dog in that, but that defense has been hanging on for dear life, and it's finally affected the offense enough in the last couple of weeks for a loss. And Utah without Cam Rising's really been just, unfortunately, not enough to complement what's a championship caliber defense in Utah.
We can all agree that he brought the big Penix energy. He brought the big Penix
energy. He was just saying penis, right?
Yeah, he was.
100%.
He changed his name for sure.
was kind of awkward. I didn't like that.
In front of Lee Corso.
That is the Pat McAfee of full effect right there, folks. That would never have happened 2 years ago.
Gojo, did Penix win the Heisman Trophy over the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, he put some distance right now. They keep this because the offense isn't going to stop doing that. Like, there's nobody else. I think the Utah game might be a little bit of that, but no, they're going to keep shredding like this in front of everybody else. He's got a lot of positive momentum coming off last year, which tends to matter with this award. You've got your best performance in a big game where everybody was watching. And Stugotz, you guys all know this. So much of the Heisman, as a get ready to put my douche hat on here. As a Heisman voter, can tell you that having plenty of those opportunities down the stretch in big games to have the quote-unquote Heisman moments.
That's what a douche hat look like after the
Yeah,
break.
baby. Yeah, baby. Cannot help it. Sorry, it's the Stugotz School of Broadcasting in me. But no, he's got plenty of Heisman
apologize
moments
for it.
coming up that he's going to have opportunities to cement that. So, yeah, right now he's the clear front runner. It looks incredible.